Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening to the Angel Rock on United Public Radio Network, also known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network, or just UPRN on 105.3 and 107.7 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And I am your host, Lorilei Potvin. I am a host of this show and a co-host of my newest show that I've started with a good friend of mine on Thursday nights called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed with David Hansel. But this evening, I'm so glad to see you here. I see Sandra Sharp here already, bright and early. I saw you. We were in the green room, Sandra. Welcome. Glad to have you here. If you want to join in the conversation, you want us to give you a shout out like Sandra just did, you can head over to UFO Paranormal Radio, whether it's a Facebook page or YouTube channel, and we will see your comments. Now, if you've never been to my show before, or you've never used StreamYard, we've got Howie here already. Hey, Howie, welcome, says Tips Top Hat. If you've never been here, though, please head over to streamyard.com/Facebook. I should highlight that for you guys at the bottom of the stream. And all you have to do is give StreamYard permission to use your face and your name. Otherwise, you just come up as a Facebook user, and I have no idea who you are. No, you don't have to give permission, but please just let us know who you are. If I say, hey, I don't know who you are, you're just Facebook user, and then that way we can address you personally. A little bit, I want to remind you guys something exciting that we have been asking for a long time. Our website has been completely revamped and it's brand new. So you may want to check that out. It's www.uprntalkradio.com. And it looks beautiful, if I do say so myself. So I got to give Joe Montaldo a big shout out. He is the owner of the network and he has many great shows of his own on the network here. He's got The Centralist, he's got UFO Undercover on Wednesday nights, and many other different shows. So thank you, Joe. He provides this platform for us. Now, I'm not streaming the Angel Rock on Roku this evening. We do that with The Thing at the Foot of the Bed, but there are many shows. We are on TV on Roku. We have our own channel. So if you want to find it, what you can do is you sign into your Roku account, and then I've got pollen there. It looks like a snowstorm where I am right now. And I swear I've got some in my nose. So sorry if you're watching. Anyways, if you wanted to join in on the Roku channel, many of our new shows are there. If you like what you see, please share, like, and subscribe. That means either on our YouTube channels or wherever you may be accessing our shows, because we've got all new hosts, many of them, and we've got more coming. There is something for everybody on this network. Anyways, third time, Roku. Sign into your Roku account and you're going to go to the channel store. And then you're going to search for UFO space P as in paranormal. There'll be a list that comes up. We're about the third or fourth one down, and you're going to be looking for UFO space paranormal and United Public Network. I think it's United Public Network. I think that's what it is. If not, it's United Public Radio. I think that sounds more right, actually, radio. So click on that. You guys know I say it all the time. Sometimes when you start doubting yourself after saying it so many times, but you'll be able to find it. And you can watch us on TV. So we have an amazing guest for you, as we always have great guests. I want to give a huge shout out to Gavin Davies with John Hunt Publishing. He sends me the best guests with the most amazing books. And this beautiful lady is no different. She's staying up late over in the UK. So let me read her bio first, and then I'll introduce you. So we're going to skip one of the words in her title because it is not the gist of the book, but it pertains to the last 3 years. We'll leave it at that. So the book is called Atlantis and Gaia, Magic Reincarnation, starting with C, last 3 words, or 3 years, and Earth Healing Today. And her name is Diana Mary Rose. Now, Diana, I got to scroll down to your bio. So Diana Mary Rose is a psychic medium, a Reiki and Second Master of the Healing Arts, and a classically trained homeopath. Her clairaudient and telepathic abilities are profound. Excuse me. And she uses those skills while writing. Telepathy means that she can chat away with Source in an uninhibited manner, and that comes through in her writings. Her lively style reflects the world upstairs, which is free of earthly concern. And I'm going to stop there. I don't know how I forgot to tell, because I know Diana doesn't know a lot about me either. I forgot to tell you guys, if you've never seen me before, I am a Canadian clairvoyant medium, a crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, and registered nurse. And as you all well know, very well versed in the very well versed in the paranormal. That wasn't by choice. The paranormal found me. I still want to read the rest of her bio though, because it's quite interesting. So Diana's spirit guides support her, her alter egos, past family members, and other souls who have a part to play in her bookwork. Her unique style is her gift to the world, for within her writings are to be found profound truths as well as celebrity gossip. Ooh, right up my aisle. I'm not a gossiper, but I do stay on top of celebrity gossip, believe it or not. Her writing is playful but also purposeful. For through her storytelling style, she shows the reader how karma and reincarnation works. She has a degree from Exeter University in English Medieval Studies. Ooh, another topic I love. And has worked as a professionally trained archivist. Both these areas of expertise have contributed greatly to her ability to research subject matter with a rigorous eye for detail. She also asks hard-hitting questions of her team, and that rebounds with bold and bright answers from the spirit self, the healing entities she works with. Today, she lives and works from her home in, I hope I say this correctly, Rutland in the UK. Welcome, Diana. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You've got a bio like I do when I'm a guest on a podcast, right? But there's so much you've probably been doing it. Like, so how did you connect with spirit? How did you know about your guides? I always ask people because not everybody knows about these things, right? We all
Yeah.
have some.
Well, it's come on. I mean, I'm 65 now,
Mhm.
and
You don't look
it's
it.
off, and it's something that comes on over time. I mean, I started meditating about 15 years ago on a
Excuse me.
daily basis.
Mhm,
And since then, the psychic aspect has come on profoundly. It was there before,
mhm,
but since meditating, it's really moved much more rapidly. And I guess, I started hearing things, seeing things,
mhm,
hearing more things, reading a few books, and so on and so forth. And the concept of the spirit guide has just grown and grown and grown. And now I can hear him and I chat to him when I'm walking the dog and all sorts of things.
mhm,
But I've known there's been somebody there for maybe 25 years,
mhm.
Before that, I used to go to mediums and they told me there was someone
Right.
there, and so on and so on. So it's just a process really as you gradually move along, your journey in life. Yeah.
I'm kind of glad. Yeah, that's why I always ask people how it starts because the same as myself, even as a nurse, like I'm writing 3 books myself, and one of them is sharing the most profound, incredible things that we witness as nurses at the bedside. Because
Yeah.
I always say I was so deeply blessed to be at the beginning of life working in
Mhm.
the NICU and seeing it hundreds of times. Then I worked out in the community and there were a lot of technical things I did, like chemotherapy and central lines and many things, ventilators, you name it, out in the community.
Mhm.
But where I really felt very passionate about was palliative care.
Mm.
And you would have a patient coming on, usually not that ill, sometimes just diagnosed, and you may follow them to the end of what I call transitioning back home.
Mhm.
I've studied near death experiences for over 40 years professionally and personally, and I believe I've had one as a toddler. Now, the whole point of that is that I was talking to my guides since I was a little kid, but I never knew that they were my guides. Like I
Mhm.
knew how many children I was going to have. I knew I the doctor told me I'd never have any. I have 2. I knew what their names were going to be. Like I knew all this. I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and I barely was 4 years old. I'm going to be
Mhm.
58 in August. So, you hear that inner voice, and I'm curious to ask you if you're what you hear because I'm kind of doing a bit of a survey, if you will, to see what people hear when they're in contact with their guides.
Mhm.
And I hear it as in my own voice, but I do know that some hear a separate voice. What do you find when you communicate?
Yeah, no, I hear a separate voice.
Okay.
I hear a male voice,
Okay.
and he's very specific. I know exactly. I know when I hear my spirit guide coming through because I hear his voice, and
Mhm.
he's not me. is completely different. And I do also hear other voices, and I can
Mhm.
hear voices in the background sometimes,
Yeah.
gossiping in the way, and all sorts, but
Mhm.
they come through in different accents. They come through
Yeah.
in all sorts of different ways. Yeah.
I think
So,
what it is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think that spirit, as we call it collectively in the field, will appear to you right when in the perfect moment that it's meant to happen, but in a way that will not frighten you, right?
yes, I've never been frightened ever.
No, but
Not
to hear
not
voices, some people would go, "Oh my God, am I going crazy?" Like,
Yeah, would that freak
mhm,
freak me out? No, it never ever has.
okay.
So I think that there must be some sort of aspect of sort of, well, I suppose when they send these things through, because I receive them. I can't make them happen.
Mhm,
There must be some element of calming calming me down or calming other people down when that happens. Otherwise, you could, yes, Brizzy, you could freak out, think, "My God, I'm going mad," but you're
mhm,
not. And
mhm.
it's a lovely thing. So
I
it's
know. Okay, sorry.
yes, particularly when I'm writing. If I'm
Mhm,
writing at this computer, I will hear my spirit guide's voice with one sentence, and as I'm writing that sentence, typing that sentence, I'm hearing him with the
mhm.
next sentence. So it's constantly trying to catch up with what he's saying. So furiously
Do you
writing.
think it's automatic writing that you're doing, like a type of channeling for people? Because we have people tuning in that don't have any spiritual background, so we always gotta be careful
Yeah.
when we use words like that because people go, "What the heck is that?" Do you
No,
think it's a
no.
channeling or you're just kind of scribing as he's
I'm
speaking?
I'm listening to a spirit guide and I'm putting down what he's writing, but that's not that, I don't think. That is
Yeah.
isn't that more sort of inspirational writing or something where you just sort of go
Well,
with.
automatic writing, and I've done it before, that you get almost into a meditative state, like a lightly
Mhm.
meditative state, and you literally start to write, and you may know what you're starting to write, but it starts to come faster and faster and faster. And by the end of it, you could fill 2 or 3 pages and you don't even know what you've written. And you go back and you look,
Yeah.
and it's like, holy cow, where did that come from? And you know where it came from, but it's like I was here, but I don't remember writing all this stuff.
Yeah, no,
Mhm,
no, I can remember every single word I'm writing, and
mhm,
the other thing is, if I don't quite like the phrase, then he'll rephrase it for me,
okay.
or I don't quite understand that, so he'll then paraphrase it in another way. So it's very much this telepathic audio is what
Mhm,
I'm told it
yeah.
is. So that it's fully telepathic. So I hear him, he hears me, and we have a conversation while I'm writing the book. Which
Mhm.
probably sounds totally wacky to anyone who
I don't
isn't
think it does
isn't
at
in the
all.
spiritual side, but
Mhm.
it's just the way it goes, clairaudience, but at
I
a
think
h
we're all capable of being telepathic, and I think many of us use telepathy and we don't even realize that we're
yeah,
being telepathic.
yeah,
Mhm,
absolutely right, yeah. I mean,
mhm,
so much of it is, it just happens, doesn't it, as we're walking around and doing things, and I think a lot of people are psychic, but they don't even think about it. They're too busy, doing their daily jobs, but,
mhm,
yeah, yeah. But this is certainly strengthened a lot as a result of meditating and
mhm.
healing myself, and
Yeah.
indeed going to crystal healers as well and using all sorts of different types. Yeah.
So Sandra says to us, I'll read it out because we have a lot of audio listeners. They're listening on the replay.
Mhm.
They're not watching. They'll go, where did that come from? So Sandra, one of our regular, she supports our shows here both nights. She says, I knew when I was a teen that I would only have one child. I knew his name and gender at that time. I was almost 30 before I had him. Isn't that interesting? And then she said, it sounds absolutely delightful, Diana, with what you've just shared.
Yeah.
So let's get it. This isn't your first book, as I understand it. You've
It I
written quite a few.
this is, yes, it's my very
Okay.
first book.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't written one before.
I thought, you know what? I went through your stuff there because Gavin's amazing. And for some reason, when I went, I know what it was. I went to the John Hunt publishing page and they said, click here to see Diana's other books. And I never got to. I thought, well, she must have other
Ah, no,
books.
there weren't any. No,
Yeah.
I started it, during the lockdown, like probably a lot of
Yeah.
people have done, I think, "Well, I've got
Okay.
all these thoughts in my head, they've been going around forever, let's just see if I can put something into a book," and, it took about 4 months to write it, and
Wow.
then I presented it to about 3 or 4 publishers, and John Hunt very kindly said they'd publish it, but no, it's my first one,
Okay.
so
Because it's got a really profound, well, I won't get into it, but I know you bring up some of like George Harrison. I think I saw in the write up about one of his past lives. And I don't always go with the questions with Gavin, but I'm going to start because it says Atlantis and Gaia, the name, the title, magic, reincarnation, the last 3 years, I'll put, and earth healing today. And, there's so many topics that you talked about, like Atlantis. One of the things that was mentioned, that mystical civilization for the Atlantean light shines brightly over every aspect of society today. What does that statement mean for somebody that's never heard of this? They've maybe heard of Atlantis, but have no idea. What does that mean to you?
yeah, when I was writing the book, Atlantis came in again and again and again, and
Hmm.
finally, uh, I put well, I've got an entire chapter on a very brief history of Atlantis. Now, as I understand it from what I've been hearing, the Atlantean civilization arrived after the dinosaur event, in a sense, when
Okay.
the dinosaurs were finished off.
Hmm.
There was some sort of cataclysmic event at that point on Earth, and there was virtually no oxygen. The place was destroyed and
Hmm.
it was all in darkness. And at that point, the Atlanteans came from another planetary system. They are
Hmm.
aliens. They came down in spaceships.
Hmm.
Um, and they came quite specifically, they were engineers and scientists, and they came quite specifically to mend the earth.
Hmm.
After this event, they came to put ley lines back into the ground, which are sort of sonic energy
Hmm.
areas, in order to fertilize the soil and regrow all the trees and get the
Right.
shrubs moving and all this kind of stuff. And they also brought in herbs for healing
Hmm.
capacity so that we could heal ourselves naturally
Hmm.
and so on. And as I understand it, there were at least 3 invasions from Atlantis, invasions or landings, shall we say, from Atlantis. And
Hmm.
that's why you get in mythology, you get very different stories about Atlantis. You get the sort of telepathic, sort of almost fairyland sort of idea of Atlanteans being wonderful and everything's white and blissful. But you also get stories of nuclear events and so on, when they were blowing up and they became very materialistic. And this is because these stories belong to different invasions through history. They are quite
Okay.
separate and a long way apart. So I spend quite a lot of time in the book discussing that, and I was given the name Ish, the father
Okay.
Ish, who came down, and he was almost a mythological character to the Atlanteans. He came down very early on his own, and he was a land healer. He
Hmm.
was walking around the earth, teleporting indeed, and astral traveling and doing all sorts of wonderful things that
Okay.
you get in sci-fi. He was actually doing these, going around the globe, improving the land so
Hmm.
that the humans could then survive there on their own. So the Atlantis civilization came along to support the indigenous population, and then ultimately they left and went away. But they did procreate um, with some of the indigenous
You're reading
population.
my mind. This happens on my show all the
I
time because
know
I was just going to ask you. So, did they help contribute to populating the earth with
they
humanity?
they did, and I think, as far as I can remember, from what I
Mhm.
I understand, because obviously I heard this a while ago,
Mhm.
I think this is where the concept of the heroes comes from,
Mhm.
because they were sort of, they had superhuman abilities, and they were much larger and more huge than the indigenous ones because they had interbred with the Atlanteans. So this is where you get this. So the Greek myths are fascinating because um, you know, when I hear it psychically, I get quite a lot of information how, you know, some of the myths, they have a purpose behind the story, and there's a reality behind there. But Atlantis is, yeah, fascinating. Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I've always heard it was the Anunnaki. I've heard that
Yes.
the
Yeah.
ones that,
Yeah.
but my theory is as a human being, we're a young race. I hear this from spirit all the time. Never mind that we are meant to live in balance. That's why we have the invisible energy core, if you will, of
Mhm.
chakras. We're meant to connect to, if you want to call it the heavens, the universe,
Yeah.
source, whatever people want to call it. And we're meant to be grounded. And I truly, for myself, I call the earth Gaia. To
Yeah.
me, it's an earth angel. And I
Mhm.
know that would sound very familiar to you, but maybe some of our listeners would be like, what the heck is she talking about?
Yeah.
So, but just as
Yeah.
we have positive and not so positive human beings, I've really come to the thought in mind that these extraterrestrials, which I totally believe in, that they too maybe had some good and maybe some not so good as well. But I haven't heard this
Mm.
theory of there being different eras, if you will, and that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense
Mm.
to me.
They devolved over time,
Hmm.
so that the later civilization that came
Hmm.
in became greedy, and they were taking minerals from the earth. Gold, I think they were taking a
Yes,
lot of
the
gold, weren't
Anunnaki.
they?
Yeah. Hmm.
And so on, and then finally they you know destroyed the earth once more, I think, and off
Yeah,
they
I'm
went.
of the mind that the more you look and the more you do research, that, there's whispers, if you will, depending on where
Mhm.
you look, that we are actually the fifth ideation of civilization here. And it's like the wheel of time, right? We keep repeating
Yeah.
the same mistakes over and over and over.
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you a question. We'll be careful navigating it because, again, we're on YouTube, but um, what's your thoughts? Because, like you mentioned about a previous nuclear event, I agree with you because when you look at the Black Sea or the
Mhm.
where it used to be, or the Dead Sea, sorry, the Dead Sea, there's like a black scar on the Earth, and if they take EMF readings, there's really high radiation levels still there.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So my thought has been, but I'd love to hear your thoughts or what your guides are giving you,
Mm,
that if we were ever in that situation again, because depending on who you listen to in this time and age, right, there's a
mhm,
lot of fear mongering. I truly believe that extraterrestrials may very well intervene at this point in time
mhm,
because we've got bigger and more powerful weapons
mm,
that when we mess with ourselves, it's not just going to mess with us, it's going to mess with the whole galaxy, if you will.
mhm.
Plus, we've seen evidence of it on Earth already. Like we have that they'll show up over power plants and all kinds of things, and they shut nuclear stuff down all the time.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, what I've heard is that there won't be a
I
nuclear
agree.
event,
Hmm. Hmm.
because that is forbidden.
Hmm.
That will be
What
stopped.
they did the last time.
Yeah, that will be stopped at source. But you're absolutely right about the geography. It's
Mhm.
fascinating. I mean, again, in the book, I was given, some really interesting information about is it called the Gulf of Riga or Sea of Riga or something, and
Mhm.
and the Mediterranean, and also there was the landscape around Mexico where you get these huge sort of semicircular bites into the land,
Mhm.
and how these were caused by nuclear events, and then the
Right.
Atlanteans came along later, and the way they call it refreshed the seas. So in some way they were clearing out all the
I
gunk.
kept hearing
uh,
neutralize. They neutralized what was not meant to be here as you were speaking, almost. If you
right, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
just cleaning it out,
Yeah.
and making it fresh once more, and how the Mediterranean, I think, was one huge nuclear event as
Mhm.
well, and so on. And it's interesting because when you look at the globe, you can see these huge sort of semicircular bites, and think, well, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I can go with that. But
Mhm.
it's so far back in time. It's fascinating stuff. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, it's beautiful that you're connecting with your guide and he's sharing his knowledge and what we can be open to as humanity to hear this. I
Mhm.
did interview somebody, it was about a year and a half ago. His name is Garnet Michael Schulhauser. He's Canadian, was a lawyer, had no interest in spirituality, was ending the near of his law career, and happened to run into this homeless man on the street. And he said, normally I would have walked around him. I wouldn't have paid any attention. And he said, I was so drawn to him. He goes, he was everything you would think, like filthy and smelly and
Mhm.
whatever else, but it was his eyes. And he said he ended up following him into a store. There's a reason why I'm sharing this. Following
Yeah.
him into a store, and he disappeared, and he just couldn't let this go. And he eventually ran back into him. It was his spirit guide. But the reason why I'm sharing this is, and why I'm so excited to hear about what you're sharing through your guide, he's written many books that Albert almost dictates to him from
Uh-huh.
across the
Yeah.
heavens. Yes. So
Mhm.
different topics.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he does talk about ET, and he's actually brought Garnet on astral traveling. Like he even brought him back home, as I call it, what people may call it going back to source, back to, heaven, whatever you want to call it. And he's been, we didn't have enough time to get into it, but some of the races that he was exposed to and stuff, it was incredible.
Mm.
But I have a
Mm.
huge question for you. So, what do you think, or what has been shared with you via your guide or guides? What happened to Atlantis? Because many people are talking about that, as well as Lemuria, the Mayans, you name it, right? But especially Atlantis. What do you think happened?
I think it's self-destructed in the
Okay.
end. It went up in one big nuclear event.
Okay.
Um, and then the other one that I know a very small amount, they mentioned Mu. And again, Mu um, came through as situated in Japan, where Hiroshima is.
Okay.
Um, so the blowing up of Hiroshima with nuclear arms was in
Hmm.
some way connected to Mu being destroyed. Uh, by I think by nuclear arms as well. I mean, I don't know very much about it. It's just that Mu pops up occasionally, and certainly that connection with Japan is always comes through at the same time. So there's something going on there. But yeah, I think Atlantis finally destroyed, and I think they must have all, whoever was left, gone home again. And
Okay.
but we are now repopulated with
Hmm.
Atlanteans. Again, that's what I've been heard. Is that, in fact, what I've heard is everyone on Earth has Atlantean heritage. So
Okay.
we are here waiting for the new era to arrive, the new Atlantis to arrive with the
Hmm.
age of Aquarius.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I hear you
Yeah.
about that. And because what I was wondering, it just depends. And I'm always interested in hearing other people's perspectives, because I always say we're never going to know all the answers until we go back home ourselves. But it's interesting on hearing different perspectives, because I've changed my viewpoints over the years. I've also, you meet more and more people, and what they're sharing through spirit, if it resonates, right, hang on to it for the
Mm.
time being, and if not, let it go.
Yeah,
And that's
I'm
really
exactly
important.
the same. I've always done that for the last 30, 40 years now.
Mhm.
And it always amazes me when people can be so dogmatic about, oh, well, that's obviously, but I just hang on to it. That's right. I
I have
read
it, the
these things.
proverbial back shelf, I call it. It sits up
Yeah,
there.
it's just sitting there thinking, well, I
Mhm,
might use that one day, or that might make sense at, sometime in the future. And it usually does. You're right. All the
mhm.
pieces, the
Or
jigsaw.
truth always, I believe, will reveal itself. Always, always, always. It may take a long time, but the truth always comes out. It always does. So that's where I put it. I call it that, the proverbial back shelf.
Yeah.
So I like this question, and like I said, I don't usually use Gavin's, but I thought I liked some of the questions, and I know you probably contributed to them, because I know I've been on shows before where people say, what's some talking points? So you say you're very clairvoyant. So what is clairvoyancy for people that don't know? And how do you specifically connect with the dead? Because we all do it differently, all of us that do this.
Yeah, most of the time I connect with my spirit guide. Just
Mhm,
occasionally, yeah, there will be somebody else that comes through, but I don't really have much control over that. I mean, I don't sort of think of myself as a medium in the sort of traditional sense of,
mhm,
bringing people through for when somebody comes to visit. Um, but I do hear voices. I mean, I remember
mhm.
I was writing an article about Princess Diana a few years
Oh,
ago,
yes,
and
okay.
I heard her voice, and it was her voice, it wasn't
Mhm,
even close, it was
yeah,
perfect, it was her,
mhm,
you know? So when that sort of thing happens, I do know for sure in my own mind that, that's a connection with her at soul
mhm.
or somebody else at soul. But most of the time, my information comes through a spirit guide rather than through individual, sort of, I mean, if somebody came, for example, and we get the tarot cards out, and I'll use those. Clairaudiently, really. I'll look at something and I'll tell them what I'm being heard about it. Um, but I'm not the sort of person who can say, "Oh, your great aunt Ethel's sitting in that chair over there." So
Mhm.
I don't have that kind of clairvoyance. I'm more clairaudient, and then the clairvoyance is more sort of seeing symbols in my head or intuiting colours around somebody's aura, that
That
kind of
is
thing.
interesting. Okay, because you'll hear in our field, and again, we have people watching from all walks of life that have never even heard of these topics before. So you'll hear it in this field for people. I know you know this, and we've got some spiritual people in the chat as the clairs, right? So clairvoyancy, as it's normally defined, is to be able to see, if you will, into the other world, across the realms, whatever, and clairaudient, which I am very, very clairaudient, hearing spirit all day long. And the
Yeah.
thing is, that's just hearing. So I just love what you said. I want to hear more about that. So it's not a traditional clairvoyancy that you're seeing spirit necessarily, but I'd love to hear more about the symbols and things that you just shared.
Yeah, I mean, if I, if somebody is asking me something about them, then I might see, as an answer, I suppose, I might see in my own mind, uh, sort of bright green, rather like your green on the screen there, bright green,
Mhm.
or a blue, or I might see a purple on one side,
I
or,
didn't even
you know,
notice that till you said it. It's not normally that color, by the way.
oh,
So
right,
I just
okay.
told you I liked it though. I didn't turn it that color.
And they would be symbolic to me of,
Mhm.
certain, things, good events that are gonna happen, sort of whatever, but, no, I mean, my strongest skill is definitely the clairaudience and the telepathy that goes with it,
Mhm.
rather than that, but having said that, the 2 go together. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
I was driving home the other day, and, along a road I've been on so many times. So I remember thinking, "Do you know, I'm sure that signpost just wasn't there before, you know."
Yeah.
And I was driving up and up and up to it, and then as I got to it, it vanished. You know,
Don't you hate when
so that
things like that happen?
I
True.
thought it was never there, but
Yeah.
it was as clear as anything in my eye. But that's something which is unusual for me. I don't normally see externally like that, although a lot of clairvoyants will do,
Mhm.
but I do hear all the time. I hear the chatter in the background all the time. Yeah,
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 like, that's what Sandra is saying. That's similar to how I connect with spirit, meaning what you've shared. And then Erica had said, she says she loves your accent. And I
oh,
know I have an accent, you don't, right? And vice versa, because we're not used to hearing each other talk that way. And she said, I take what resonates and the rest I chuck it in the F it basket. I can't say it. I would say it, but I can't say it. You know what I mean, Erica. I always tease Erica, and I love her dearly. She's a regular. We have a lot of great people that watch the show regularly,
yeah.
and I have 2 shows on the network. And she had come to my Monday night show for one of the first times, and then she showed up again on the Thursday night, and or it was vice versa. It was either Thursday and then the Monday, I think. And I said, I don't know where I know your name from. I don't know who you are. It was Monday night show because we were talking about crystals, and she had showed up the Thursday night. Now I remember because she goes, I was the crystal whore from Monday night. So I always call her that, and she gets a big kick out of it. Right? So we have lots of fun on this show. But yes, I hear you. See, I always say to people when it comes to spirit guides and angels and ascended masters and what have you, that we have a whole team. And depending on what you're going on, you got going on in life or where you are in your life, or sometimes we need more guides or different
Yeah.
guides or whatever. But my whole point I always tell people is whether you believe in them or not, they believe in you,
Yeah.
but they respect our free will. And we have to make that move to say, hey, I want
Mhm.
to know you better. I want to know more about you. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. No, that's right. And actually, when I'm doing Reiki on somebody, healing,
Mm-hmm.
I will hear. I don't hear my spirit guide then
Mm-hmm.
because he's a writer. He helps with the writing, but I do hear what they call the spirit salve, as they call them, the spirit healing community in
Oh,
the
I think I,
sky.
yeah.
And
Okay.
I hear those voices coming through when I'm doing Reiki. So it's obviously possible for me to hear a huge range of voices, but
Mm-hmm.
because I'm so focused on writing, it's it's that voice that usually comes in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, and then they are different. They are different voices, different accents. And I was meditating once, and it's just so bizarre. But um, there I was, just drifting off to sleep, you know, which is when you sort of really kind of
Perfect
see
time.
see pictures without realizing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw at the top of my view these these men, and they got like sort of surgeons
Wow.
outfits on, you know, in
Okay.
hospital outfits, and
Mm-hmm.
they were walking to the left, and one of them just said hi or something, and it's it was such a
Yeah.
shock. It jumped me out of my meditation,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just like, whoa, this is incredible, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some aspect of
Did
healing
they
going
tell
on
you who
there.
they were? Because I already knew when you said I got a good idea who they were.
Oh, no, too late because I was just so surprised. That's it. I was awake.
Because I truly believe that, like, when I do crystal Reiki, like I explain, it's not traditional Reiki.
Mhm,
And, it's more about balancing chakras and playing in crystals. And we use 15 specific healing symbols we use. And you work very intuitively with that. And then you work with the person's aura and you ground them.
mhm,
It's quite involved. But before I do a session with somebody, and invariably, I don't know if it's the nurse in me or not, like I can't go back to work with, I have a back injury. Use medical knowledge every day. But my point is, I'll do a history with someone as to why they're coming to see me initially. And
mhm,
without fail, the chakras, according to whatever's going on in their life, it'll show up that there's something going on and there needs to be a bit of retweaking.
mhm.
But I always call in the person I'm working with, their healing team,
Uh-huh.
and my healing team,
Yeah,
and guides, right, to help.
yeah.
And I always tell people, I just got the most beautiful feedback from somebody recently, and I said I'd love to take all the credit for it, but it wasn't me. I'm just a male person.
That's right. Yeah.
That's all I am. It wasn't me. It was coming
Yeah.
from up above in your
Yeah.
guides and what
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need.
yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's the conduit for healing. Absolutely
Yes. You
right.
said it much better, the
Yeah.
conduit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There's so much to sort of understand, isn't there,
Mhm.
about the what you call the paranormal, I suppose. I mean, it's huge. It's absolutely massive, you know, and it's quite difficult. I mean, it's impossible to explain during, say, one Reiki session to somebody, which is like 45 minutes.
Mhm.
Um, kind of, where do you start? You know, I mean, when you sort of get into it, that you kind of know so much, but it's very difficult to actually boil it down
I didn't know anything.
to explain, you
Mhm.
know, quickly. But
I
it,
didn't
but
know
it's
anything. I always tell a story about, I won't get into it now, but it's what a tattoos and angels have to do with each other. Nothing, but that started my journey into angel cards years ago. And then I always said, I only want to work with angel cards and oracle cards because they're so positive. I want nothing to do with the negative in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm,
And my now partner that I'm with, we were just friends at the time. And I remember so profoundly, this is well over 15 years ago. And he said, Laura, in order for you to be working with him, what you are doing, you need to know the dark as well.
mhm,
And believe me, did I learn about the dark. The house we lived in, a lot of light workers work with that kind of stuff. And I often asked why. I only want to work with the light. I only want to
Mm.
work with the good. I only want to work with the positive.
Mm.
And now, as time is progressing, I'm realizing, looking back, why I had the experiences I did and how they're coming into play with what I'm doing now. I'm not working with anything negative, but
Yeah.
it's given me a more well rounded approach. The
Mhm.
last thing I was going to add quickly is I always say, people think that life is heavy and it's difficult, and it can be. But whenever you open that door to the paranormal, and that means paranormal does not mean ghosties and scary things for people listening. It just means things that you wouldn't normally talk about or learn about or deal with on a regular basis. And I say the more you crack that door open, the more vastly, eternally, ultimately huger it ever is than it could be compared to what we consider regular, normal, everyday life, right?
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say to you too, I wanted to add, you mentioned about Princess Diana. I've really been interested in channeling lately, and I found this podcast. I always say there's no coincidences or accidents, but it fell into my path. And there's a lot of channelers on there. So a lot of people, near death experiences, self-help gurus, whatever, really interesting um, perspective. And I'm hearing a lot of messages that I've sort of received over the years, or somebody else has shared from spirit, which is interesting. So with the channeling, there's a lady on YouTube and she gets so much flack, but she is a channeler, a trance channeler, and I am telling you, trance channeled Princess Diana. Now she lives in the United States, so she does not have a British accent. She had that soft voice, the perfect accent. She knew
Ah. Yes, so
things.
she almost took over the vocal cords.
She
Yeah. Yeah,
did,
yeah,
and
amazing. Yeah.
I have 2 close friends that are
Mm.
from the UK originally, and I sent it to them because I
Mhm.
thought, well, you guys will know more even than I might have known, and they were just astounded to see what this woman did.
Yeah.
You knew it was the
Yeah.
embodiment of Princess Diana, just like
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's so many different talents out there. So many different talents. See, I could never do that to save my life. But I hear perfectly. I mean, her
Mhm,
voice was absolutely Diana.
mhm.
But I can't reproduce what's in my head, you know. But yes, when somebody can do that, that's marvelous. Absolutely marvelous.
So
Yeah.
let's talk more about your book. Here we go. I knew I'd seen this point, and I didn't even look, and now I'm looking at this. Is the one I wanted to bring up. Okay, so and then I'm going to get into the karma because people are always misunderstand what karma is. But this part it says, you've got research on past lives. Can you give us examples of celebrities? And you've mentioned in here George Harrison, John Lennon, even William Shakespeare. So I'd love to hear what you found or what you shared.
Yeah, the Beatles are quite extraordinary. I mean, they came through as incredibly evolved souls who incarnated to bring love
Hmm.
to the world at its darkest moment, where
Right.
nuclear war was a very real threat in
Hmm.
the 60s, the early
Hmm.
60s.
Hmm.
They came through after the Second World War, which of course then created the Cold War, which then had an escalating issue, as it were, with Cuba. And the Beatles came in order to bring love to the world. And actually, when you think about the Beatles, I mean, Beatlemania is like something we've never seen before or since.
No.
It was phenomenal, wasn't it? It's
It
a
was.
massive opening of the heart chakra for
Mhm.
so many millions of people. So they are highly evolved souls. Now, so their mission was to bring love um, through at that time, that decade.
Mhm.
But they also have individual missions as well.
Okay.
Um, this is where I suppose you have to explain a mission. First of all, we all incarnate with something, a mission, in order to achieve that
Absolutely.
before we die. So they also came through with individual missions, and John Lennon's individual mission was to bring peace to the world. He's
I
a
agree.
peacemaker. Now, what came through with him was that he's had multiple lives as a peaceman um,
Mhm.
over the centuries, and he was Hiawatha in the, when
Interesting.
was that, 16th century? Hiawatha was somewhere around
Mhm,
there. A great peace man of that era. Um, and uh, and actually, when you think about John Lennon as he was in the late 60s, of course,
mhm,
hugely political figure in terms of bringing peace,
mhm,
and stopping the war in Vietnam and all this kind of business. You can see how that would be. His individual mission
mhm.
was peace, but his group mission with the four of them was love, and they go
But you
together.
can't have one without the other, really, though, can you?
Sorry? No, well,
You
you
can't have one
can't.
without the other. You
It's
can't.
all sort of, that's right.
Mhm.
But and also George Harrison. Now he came through as a monk in multiple lifetimes,
Interesting.
um, and indeed Rasputin. He was Rasputin, allegedly, according to
Mhm,
my spirit guide, in Russia. But he was also Peter the Great in Russia as well. So this is all explained in the book, how he created a lot of karma as Peter the Great,
mhm,
and he released a lot of karma by finishing off the Romanovs in the beginning of the 20th century. So he comes through as a monk multiple times,
mhm,
but he also comes through as a musician and artist multiple times as well.
mhm,
And he was Vivaldi, Antonio Vivaldi.
mhm,
And I mention a few of the Beatles' songs which have a sort of Baroque influence to them.
mhm,
And that is coming through from George, or
mhm,
George's auric field. And this is where it gets complicated, because it isn't necessarily George who is providing the background music to some of the Beatles records, it's George Martin.
mhm,
But the influence of his huge aura, and as far as I understand it, George is a massive figure for positive light in the universe. So that influence in his auric field extends through to the other people nearby as well. So he's a fascinating man. He comes through again and again and again, George Harrison.
Okay, so I gotta ask you a conspiracy question, and you don't have to answer it, but I'm gonna ask because I have spirit nagging at me to ask. Does does Paul McCartney come through? And the reason why I ask you, depending on how deep you've dug, there is a theory that he did pass, and there is another individual that is now Paul McCartney. I don't know if you've heard that story or not,
No,
but
I haven't. No,
you
no, no, I
have
haven't. No.
not heard. Okay, we're going conspiracy theory for a minute.
No,
So,
Paul McCartney did not come through in the book.
okay,
He simply wouldn't, or at least so we say my spirit guide would not discuss him. They definitely
it's
wanted to
probably
focus.
protecting you because if you wrote a book and said that this is what happened and this is who he was, but okay, so this is the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Nick, I'm not a Beatles fan. My partner enjoys older music, but we've really looked into this. There's quite a few documentaries on this that it was theorized, I believe, just before they broke up. And they kind of got really into Hinduism and stuff. And it's with their album. I want to say I'm going to get them mixed up with Led Zeppelin. It's the one I think Abbey Road. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure, in the chat. And they're all walking across a crosswalk,
Oh
and
yeah.
Paul has no shoes on, and
Oh
he's
yes, I remember the famous photograph. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if you play the album backwards, believe it or not, we did it as kids. It does sound
Uh-huh.
like it says Paul is dead. Now that is really conspiracy. But I have seen video, and they are claiming that Paul was killed in a car accident.
Hmm.
And I think the Beatles were right at their height of popularity. Like you said, the likes of Beatlemania had never been seen before, never
Mm,
has it been since.
yeah.
And they are claiming there was a guy kind of within their field by the name of Billy Sheeran. And Billy had surgery that made him look very much like Paul. When you see pictures of Paul, and then a year or two later, they do look different. But the biggest thing for me in one of these documentaries was, and I don't think it was photoshopped because it looks like it was fairly old video. There is Paul Harrison and or sorry, George Harrison and his wife. There's Ringo Starr and his wife, and I think John was already gone by then. And they are meeting up with Paul McCartney backstage, and they're videotaped. I don't think they realized someone was filming them, and they're going, "Hey, Billy, how are you doing? Nice, so nice to see you, Billy. Billy, great to see you, Billy, Billy, Billy." It's supposed to be Paul McCartney. Why are you calling him Billy? I
Ah,
don't know if it's true or not. So I thought I'll just ask you, and if it came through,
yeah,
great. Or if you didn't want to answer it too, I'd respect that.
yeah.
But it gives you pause for thought.
Yeah, everything's interesting. I mean, certainly at the moment, I'm writing another book actually,
I knew you were. I knew it.
and I've just been writing this evening
Yeah.
about character change,
Oh, let's talk
where
about
you can
that.
have a sort of an accident, car
Mhm,
accident, and you'll know this as a nurse, and somebody comes out of it and their personality is completely changed,
mhm,
and just looking at why that would happen on a psychic level,
mhm.
and there are various reasons, you know. Um, but yeah, yeah.
So when you, sorry, I was reading Sandra's comment. So you're saying as a nurse, so somebody had an accident. Sorry, could you repeat that for me, please? Because I was reading McCartney drop and I'm thinking, no, 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 no. And I got
Oh,
confused. I apologize.
no, if somebody has a brain injury
Okay,
as a
good. That's
result
what I
of
thought you were going.
of an accident,
Mhm.
there'll be a character change, or indeed for other reasons as well. The whole personality can alter. And
Yeah,
what I was writing was that that can be the result of the soul being split from the
yeah,
person down here. You
true.
lose touch with your soul, and
Mhm.
then you simply can't relate in the same way any longer. So your personality changes. You're still same person, but there's just it's just different, you know.
Well, I just said this to my partner Dell last night. We were watching somebody he follows on YouTube that was quite young that apparently had two strokes. And I was explaining when
Yeah,
you
and
get
that was the other one that came through. It was the stroke. Yes, sorry,
okay,
carry
well,
on.
the
Yeah.
thing is that I said, I don't think there's anything more heartbreaking, especially if you are a romantic partner of somebody and they've had a traumatic closed brain injury because nothing looks broken on the outside.
Mhm.
And you might not even know the person you're living with anymore. That's how sad it is.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
wanted to add to this that you brought on. I have he's published with John Hunt Publishing. His name is Paul Anthony Wallace. He runs Fifth Kind TV on YouTube. He's a fascinating man. He's written 3 books and it's like a trilogy. There's The Scars of Eden, Escape from Eden, and I forget the other one. Now he's originally British. I think he lived over in Canada even for a spell, but his family and him are now in Australia. The
Mhm.
reason I bring this up, I've never forgotten this discussion because it was so profound for me. He used to be a pastor, quite religious, and he still has quite a connection to the, source or God, but he's really changed his mind. He talks a lot about ufology and aliens and stuff. So we got into a discussion from one of his books about the Anunnaki possibly coming here, like you said, about the gold and wanting to take whatever.
Mhm.
Now, he put the theory out that what if there was actually a Homo sapiens 1.0? We're version 2.0. And he said, but the first version was capable of, had all the gifts, say, that the Anunnaki had. Telepathy was normal. They were brilliant, like just on and on and on, right? And so when they were faced with the daunting task of you will serve us, you will get the gold, they're like,
Mhm.
I don't think so, basically. So they went back to the drawing board, and if you will, and I don't say this with any disrespect to anybody listening, they kind of dumbed us down a little bit, if you will, to
Mm.
sort. But he said exactly sort of what you did. Say that you've been in a coma or you've had a head injury or something happens and you see this happen.
Yeah.
People that could never do something before wake up and all of a sudden they can play the concerto piano or they can do all of these things. And his theory was, what if it's always still in there? It's locked, but because of whatever happened to the head or the injury, it switched that light switch back on, and that's where the person can access it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Well, what I was just hearing then was that the astral layer, which has, contains all the emotions, and the talents of past lives, breaks through. And
I love
then
it.
suddenly
Yeah.
they're using
Mhm.
their past life
Right.
talent,
That
which
makes sense.
they before was kind of behind the door, you know.
Mhm.
And there it is. Um, yeah, these hugely talented people.
Mhm.
I mean, look at Elton John. The age of 4 on playing the piano and
Yep.
all this kind of stuff. Off he goes to the Royal College of Music at 12.
Mhm.
Um, how does that happen? Well, it happens because he's been a great pianist and a great musician in past
Mhm.
lives several times
Mhm.
over, probably
Yep.
multiple times over.
Mhm.
And also, how come his music becomes bestseller when somebody else's doesn't? Because he has power in his aura. He's a hugely evolved soul. And when you have a massive amount of power, you can produce, like David Bowie, for example. I mean, you can produce a record which somebody else would never sell in a
True.
lifetime, because actually
Mhm.
some of David Bowie's stuff, for example, is pretty naff, really. And yet, it's worldwide. And it goes on forever, and it's because his auric field is so powerful, because he's such an evolved soul. So yeah, these megastars, and that's why I kind of bring celebrities into my book a lot, because they're important in the world. They're highly evolved souls, and yet to somebody, I suppose, as the average sort of intellectual, who
Mhm.
you think, oh, come on, that's all tat,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
should be talking, a professor of literature is more important than that. But actually, no, they're not, because that's where the healing element comes into celebrity as well. They come down in order to make a splash in the world, um, and heal through their music, because
Mhm.
music
Absolutely.
is sonic, music is healing.
Just like
um,
art is music, anything can be healing
it
that's
can
done. Mhm.
it can, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
all sorts of music, and again, what I put in my book is that Elton John was one of the children of Johann Sebastian Bach. He was one of
Okay.
the Bach, boys,
Mhm.
and very, very talented indeed. So he didn't have the top slot, shall we say,
Right.
historically, but he was pretty profoundly good at what
Mhm.
he was doing. And this time he came down to perform, and that performance was his alone, because that time he was in the shadows of his dad, and
Mhm.
and so on. So again, this is where it's quite interesting with past lives, how you may come down as a performer once more, but you take a different role, so that you learn a different element to
Mhm.
that particular trait that you have,
Mhm.
and so on. Yeah, that's
That
interesting.
that makes total sense to me because, and then as a spiritual teacher, we talk about on the other side, there is no time, that the past, present, and future is happening at the same time. I had so many questions going through my mind, but I can't argue with you because it's true that when you see, like, I literally just saw this video that's going viral. This little one can't be more than probably 14, 16 months old. This child is playing the piano already. Like, just like can barely touch the keys, but is playing a
Just knows
melody.
what to do. Yeah,
No, but
yeah.
it's like this child has to be reincarnated probably from a concert pianist or somebody
Yeah,
because
has to be, doesn't it? Yeah,
if we could all do it, we would,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So I
yeah,
hear what you're
yeah.
saying.
I
Oh,
mean, I've got four children, so it's interesting watching them, because my oldest one, when he was a tiny little baby, loved music. It was always pulling musical chimes around the place all
yeah.
the time, sitting down videos, watching music, and all the rest of it. So when the second one was born, got out the
Mhm.
same toys, couldn't care less about them.
Yep.
Third, fourth, couldn't care less.
Yep.
But the oldest one, he's now gone on. He's got his grade 8 distinction cello, grade 8 distinction piano. He's
Mhm.
done sound recording at university. So it's like, and I do remember a clairvoyant when when this is before I realized that he needed music lessons, saying, one of your children must be able to learn music. They must, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and she was absolutely insistent on that. Now, of course, I realise which one it was and why.
Yep.
But yeah, it's fascinating. It is
Mhm.
fascinating. They really do come through with talents. They're not
Mhm.
all the same. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question since we're talking about children with interesting talents. What I have two sons. I always knew as a little girl, I was told I was going to have them. As a teenager, the doctors told me it would never happen. So my eldest, they're both very unique. All children are unique. He is part of the LGBTQ community and what have you. So they both haven't had very easy roads. My second one, who is 25, has severe autism. So have you received anything from the other side in the way of, I believe he chose to come in that way, that there's many gifts with autism. But just out of curiosity, that just came up. And if he hasn't given you anything on it, that's okay too. I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. The yeah. Autism is interesting, isn't it? It's
Mhm.
because it's acute sensitivity, isn't there,
People don't.
beneath that?
It's like I can feel what he feels. I'm not feeling it, but to explain it to people, because a lot of
Mm,
people don't know what it is. Never mind the social difficulties and the sensory issues. But I say to people, now you wonder why somebody that could be, have, say, Asperger's or high functioning autism, for example, and they have a meltdown and it seems over nothing. And I say to them, if you're sitting in an office and the fluorescent lights are assaulting your eyes, like you can feel them, you can see them, they almost feel like they're
mhm,
burning your eyes. You can hear the clock going two rooms over. You can hear the fan. You can hear every little noise going on. And as you're sitting there, you feel every fiber of every piece of
mm,
clothing you're wearing, the seams. If there's a smell of something, you smell it. Like there are no filters. So that's,
mm.
yes, it's acute sensitivity.
That's it. That's right. They sort of come down without protection, don't they, around
Mhm,
this incredible sensitivity.
mhm.
So they then, so as far as I know, they then shut down in order to cope, don't they? Because there's so much coming at them. Yeah,
You
yeah.
yeah.
No, I don't know really. I would like to comment live because I haven't really done
I
very much
just thought
about
I
it.
asked. Remember, I told you before we went live, I don't really have a plan. I just leave it up to spirit. Most
Yeah,
people know, and we just go wherever we go. And if you
yeah,
don't have an answer,
yeah,
that's okay. We've
yeah.
got lots of comments. If you don't mind, I'm going to stop for a minute,
Mm,
read a few. So I'll go back a little bit. So when let's see, we'll go back to Erica says the Beatles when we were talking about them. My mom would love that, and the
and the
monkeys.
monkeys. I know the
Yeah.
monkeys are wonderful.
I
Yeah.
remember the monkeys, and Sandra says she loves both too. She
Yeah.
said she could totally see the monk in George Harrison. She said she sees him painting and sculpting too.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Concurring, hang on, I'm going down. Oh, and then now they're all, I guess nobody, I must, well, you know what? Joe, the owner of our network, he teases me and calls me conspiracy princess. He says there's another woman that likes conspiracy more than I do. He calls her the queen. I don't like the word conspiracy. I like the word truth seeking because I'm not saying it is. I'm
It's,
just
it's,
putting it out there. Like, what
Yeah,
do
I
you
mean,
think?
it's just opening your mind to all
Yeah.
possibilities, I mean, I know that conspiracy is like, "Oh, well, you're just a fantasist," and actually, no, it's not the case at all. It's about just
Mm-mm.
being open to
And
possibilities,
asking
and
questions
then you
and
see
being open to
connections.
hearing it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and maybe there's nothing, like I said, maybe you didn't if you don't get anything from spirit about autism, that's okay. Maybe
mm,
somebody that's listening was meant to hear that, and we'll go further and look
mm,
that up and see what they find. So I brought
yeah,
it up for a reason, obviously.
yeah.
Um,
But
then
so
the
one thing the lady there was talking about the George Harrison and
yeah,
his,
yeah, her comments on the screen. Mhm.
spiritual side, because one thing that came through, which amazed me. I mean, I just hear these things, and is that the Beatles chose a monk hairstyle. Um,
They
you know,
did,
and
right?
actually,
They
and I thought, oh, hang
did.
on, let's Google that. Oh my God, he's right. They do look like monks. If you look at a monk, if you do take a look
Yeah.
at
As soon
Pontiac,
as you
isn't it?
said that,
You
I
know,
could see them. I remember
you
I
know,
wasn't even born when they had the monks. It was
Yeah,
before I was born
they're
in
monks. They're
65.
monks, in another name. And actually, if you look at George Harrison in the 70s with that long tousled
Mhm,
hair, he
mhm.
does look very much like Rasputin. And
I
if you
love
look
how
at,
you look like Jesus in a way. If you picture Jesus, like
yes,
I
it's
don't know
that
what
sort of
Jesus looks like, but
time. And if
hmm
you look at on Sergeant Pepper,
yeah.
George Harrison,
hmm
he, and then you have a look at Peter the Great. He looks like Peter the Great. He's got that
hmm
wonderful Peter the Great moustache. He's got the clothes, of course,
Yeah.
the outfits look, but the actual face is similar. So this is something I've been sort of studying quite a lot recently.
hmm
Is when I hear that somebody is a reincarnation of somebody else, I
hmm
Google them and think, my God,
Me
they
too.
really do look similar. That's
hmm
absolutely true. And not only in and even sometimes when the portrait can never have possibly, it doesn't date to the person, it still looks like them. And that's because, as I now understand it from up
hmm
there, my spirit guide, is because psychic artists intuit what that person looked like. Even if it was
hmm
500 years before they were born, they still intuit what they looked
hmm
like. um, and now I know that can never be proved, but as I say, when I
hmm
look at somebody famous today, and then I look back at a painting of the person they were supposed to be, it's surprising
hmm
how often the same bone structure is there. You know, it's
I have to
fascinating
agree
stuff.
with you because, again, I never went looking for this, but I've seen it many times where there's a theory about like Nicolas Cage, Keanu Reeves, Jay-Z, Beyonce's husband, I think Eddie Murphy, there's a whole bunch of them that there are Johnny Depp. There are a whole bunch of portraits from way in the past that they still look identical to this portrait. Now, of course, the conspiracy theory is why are they still alive? But no, I don't think that's what
Yeah,
it is. I think they're a reincarnation
the
of whomever
reincarnation.
that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm,
it's very possible. I mean, who knows? You know, without, as I say, I rely on hearing it, as it were. But I mean, that makes
mhm,
perfect sense, doesn't it?
mhm,
Certainly from my experience of looking at people and then looking at their prior lives, you
mhm.
think, yeah, they look the same.
Some of these are uncanny. Like some of them are kind of like I think it's a bit of a stretch, but like I know the one I've seen of Jay-Z, whose real legal name I think is Sean Carter. There is a picture of an African American man. He looks like it has to be the late 1800s, wearing suspenders and a white shirt and one of those almost cabbie hats.
Mm,
Those two, I swear to God, if you laid their faces over top of each other, would be a carbon copy
yeah.
in these pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Incredible. Yeah, yeah.
that,
So that's when the same personality is coming through. That's
mhm,
what I understand. I mean, if it is, you know, a reincarnation,
mhm,
because sometimes, of course, you get a reincarnation and they look completely and utterly different, and that's because the character is different. So the
mhm,
face reflects the character, and it does, doesn't it? When you think
mhm.
about it, you know, you see somebody in the street, very often you can sort of intuit a little bit about their personality from the
Oh, yeah.
face. You know, there's so much there,
Mhm.
and the that's right. So yeah, 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 yeah. Another aspect to
We've
it
got
all.
all kinds of good comments here going on. Yeah, you and me both, Erica. Erica says, I need to win the lottery. Hop on a plane. She says, come visit with you, Sandra. I always say, yeah, it'd be nice to win the lottery, but I always look at the fact that even though we as human beings want something, and I truly believe if you ask for it, right, and it's meant to come to you, it will. So I always think if I'm not winning the lottery, maybe I was never meant to have that kind of money, right?
Yes, yeah, that's true. I mean, I think
Mhm,
that's right. When it doesn't, when you particularly if you really throw yourself at something, it simply doesn't happen. There has to be some kind of a blockage. Now, either you're blocking yourself,
mhm,
or it was never meant to be, one way
mhm,
or the other. You know, there's always several options
mhm.
psychically, but
I
yeah.
have to have you come back on and talk about. Well, I have to have you come. Not that I'm ending things, but I'm going to have come back on when you have your second book on because I think we're having such an interesting discussion here. So we've got Donna. She says hello from Delaware. So welcome, Zach. I did not get to give you a shout out. Hello. We got Michelle Pratt from Australia. So Erica asked us a question, and it's not quite directly related. But I'm feeling like we may have some answers for her. I know Sandra has given her a few answers. But she says, is there a way to quote unquote pump up our own auras? Is what I know that's what she meant. She said, can a soul become highly evolved in this lifetime? or must we reincarnate a few more times at least? So I'd
Mm.
love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you can. If you meditate, I mean, meditation seems to be the way forward, combined with, um, using things like Reiki, using healing, eating organically or fresh food, and
Right.
using herbs and homeopathic medicines as much as possible. I mean, all that way of life, and it is a way of life, really. It cleanses everything. It cleanses the physical body, it cleanses the aura,
Mhm,
it puts you in a good place so that you feel better, and then you're help healing the street down the road because everyone's so happy because you're walking up and down it.
mhm,
It changes everything, and that all that combines to allow you to evolve. So
mhm.
yeah, I think that's the way to do it, and it does happen. It definitely changes. Yeah.
What spirit gave me, and they remind me often of, is this two things. First of all, if it doesn't make any difference 10 years from now, let alone 10 minutes from now,
Mm,
let it go and pick your battles. But the
mm,
other one, which I think is so powerful, is what we perceive becomes what we believe, and it becomes our reality. So if we
mm.
tell ourselves, like I just said to you, I probably wasn't meant to win that money, I'm kind of telling myself that that's what I'm perceiving.
Yeah,
So it
it's sort
becomes
of
my belief.
reinforcing. Yeah.
Whereas you just said, there could be a blockage. You are very much right about that. But
Mhm,
I've really shut myself off by just making that statement instead of
mm,
stepping back and being open to exploring it and looking at it actually with
mhm,
fresh eyes, if you will, stepping back and thinking, is there really a blockage? Is there something that needs to be healed
mm,
here? Or, you know what I'm
mm.
saying? And it really made a lot of sense when I received that. And same thing about, you'll have people tell you that you can only do something a certain way, especially when it comes to spiritual connection. Whereas I think we all do it in our own special way.
Yeah, absolutely.
When
Yeah.
you have someone tell you, well, you can only do it if you only do this, right? Then it becomes a belief. And
That's
then,
right. It
mhm,
becomes a religion rather than
mhm,
I mean, this is the big difference, isn't it, between religion, which is dogma, it's full of
mhm,
laws,
yeah.
thou shalt do this way,
Mhm.
and spirituality, which is as free as a bird. And
Aren't you
you've
finding, though, I'm seeing this, and maybe it's just me, and I talk to people all over the world. I'm finding in certain circles that spirituality is just sort of being checked into the word of religion, and we're kind of getting into some of these dogmatic belief systems. And I'm not judging. I'm
Well,
seeing.
I think a lot of people who don't understand it assume that
Yes.
you go to church and you're a good person if you're
Hmm.
spiritual, and actually it's about the last thing I'd be doing
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I've always loathed the church. It's so boring, it's
Tell me
stuck in
about
the
it. I was
past,
raised in it, going to
It's,
church, forced to go to Catholic school, the whole bit. Yes.
yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. It just I mean, I remember when I was a child, I had this theory, which I
Hmm.
sincerely hope I think it's true now, which is like, well, we're born and then we grow
Hmm.
up and then we die and then we're born again and then we grow up and we die and it's a constant process. Well, I'm talking about reincarnation, of course, but I didn't, as a 5-year-old, I didn't quite understand it like that. But I just knew there was this recycling element to life, and I was quite happy with that. And then my mum comes along at about 7 and says, "Oh no, oh no, 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 you die. That's it." And that was
Yeah.
a terrible shock.
Hmm.
"What? Oh, yeah, you just die." I mean, like, you're buried in the ground, and it's only once,
You've only got one life. Like, you got to make it count.
you
Like, you
know?
got to be a good person, or you're going to hell.
But
Yep.
that
Mhm.
that's the church influence, Um,
I had
and,
a revelation about the church, though. I got to share this. This came from the Next Level Soul podcast, because I always used to say to people, some people need religion and you got to do what you got to do.
yeah,
But for me, I'm not religious. I believe in a higher power. For me, it's God. And I always say it's
yeah,
not my job to judge. And then
yeah,
somebody came on there that told this interesting story. And they said, as a parent, say your children were separated from you at a very young age, and you fought and fought and fought, and you could not see your kids, you could not get them back. The courts wouldn't, it just the way it went, right?
mm,
Now all of a sudden you've grieved, you've been heartbroken about it and whatever. All of a sudden, years later, you get a phone call, and you pick up and you hear, "Hi, mom. It's so and so. we're just down the street. We finally found where you live. We want to come and see you. And, we talked about the feelings of this parent, how they felt and how overjoyed they were and what have you. And then the guy said, what kind of car were they driving? And I'm thinking, where's he coming from with this? And where he went was, if that was you in that situation and you were a parent and your child was finally reuniting with you after so many years, what would you really care what kind of car they showed up in,
Mm.
whether it was an old jalopy or it was a sports car? And I was going, no, I wouldn't care. But the whole point he was saying this, he gave me a little bit different perspective. He said, so if we look at, say, we'll use God, whatever people want to call their higher power, we'll use God. God's our father, right? So where he was going with this was, if you need religion, whatever brings you closer to God, to love, to the principles of what we're talking about,
Oh,
what
yeah, yeah,
spirituality
yeah.
is,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what vehicle they use.
Yeah,
So I gave me a different perspective,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm also going to point out Michelle's comment that she said, because that's what's been my experiences. I think Michelle says, I think people going to church makes them think they are a great person,
Mhm.
right? I don't know.
Well,
Hard to.
it's a club, isn't it? It's a club.
Yes,
And,
yes.
I mean, it's absolutely true. I mean, it's a
Mhm,
cozy club, and there's a
mhm,
lot of good things about it,
mhm,
but you do get caught up in the rules.
mhm,
And that one of the rules is that, the psychic side, or the whatever
mhm.
you like to call it, paranormal side, is evil.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, that's the problem with the church. I mean,
Mhm.
they would just think,
I
they'd
think
think this
he was
conversation was
talking
terrible.
about ideally, like about, right, that we're talking about we're all connected. We're all, love one another and do,
Mm,
the principles that sometimes really get lost. Because I
mm.
hear what you're saying, like when you hear, excuse me, that there's hell and there's punishment, and then for
Eternal
me to wrap my
damnation,
mind around there
absolutely.
was no hell, like, it took a long time because they've been cramped down my throat for quite a few years.
Mm.
Now I know there is no hell, but try and tell somebody that that's been
Yeah, yeah,
raised
yeah.
in that,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I mean, what you hear as a child is, it really sticks with you. It's very difficult to get it out of the
Yes.
system.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, actually, to be honest, I mean, the spirituality side is really quite lonely as well,
Mhm,
because, you're on your own with your own experiences and your own thoughts, and most of
mhm.
those you can't really communicate with anyone because they think you're a lunatic. So it is
Well,
quite a
I always say
lonely
you
lonely
can't
life.
stand in queue at the grocery store and, talk about this type of thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to
You
cut you off.
can't.
Yes, you had in
No,
there.
you can't. Whereas you can very happily chat away about church. So,
Yeah.
it's a cozy existence, but it does limit your style a lot, Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think with the way things have been, with the word we weren't saying in your title though, there was a lot of really difficult things we went through over the last 3 years. But I think also, and I'm seeing it more and more, that we're finding one another, especially whether you'd call us the buzz term of light worker or spirituality. It seems we are finding one another. I don't know if you found that, but I haven't, and you're not even looking for them. And it's like, holy crap, yeah, like, oh my gosh, you're working on that. I was just thinking of that, or whatever. Have you been noticing that yourself, or are you still finding it a bit isolating?
Well, I mean, I think I'm a double isolator because of the subject matter, but also because of a writer. So, when you're writing, you're really on your own all the time
That's
writing.
true.
So, and I'm writing about stuff nobody else would understand,
Mhm.
apart from,
I'm loving
somebody
this.
who's psychic, and that's a worldwide thing rather than my neighborhood. I mean, I'm not sure convinced I could, particularly talk to people down the road about it, but but when you take the bigger picture, I mean, right around the world, people have similar ideas about these things. Doesn't matter
Mhm,
which culture they come from. There are certain things which are universal.
mhm. Well, I
Yeah.
think you have to be open to the thought of that we're lifelong learners. We're here to learn. We're here to learn, to grow, right, to evolve. And again, I think, and I always say it's so hard though, and whether it's myself or anybody else, holding that proverbial mirror right up to our face, right, to see what's
Mm.
staring back at us. Whereas, say you've got a friend or a loved one, they're on the outside looking in, and it's so easy for them to see what's going on. that I think that's kind of part of the process, right? Is learning
Mm,
to step back from that proverbial mirror, but also being open to hearing other people's thoughts and
mm,
points of view, what
mm,
they may be receiving from spirit, because we don't all receive the answers. We don't
mm.
receive all the same things. And I think that's by design and on purpose. So we can talk about these things and learn from one another and grow as well. What do you think?
Mm, mm, that's right. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it would be very boring if we all knew the same thing, wouldn't it? There'd be no,
That's for
there'd be
sure.
no space for growth.
Mhm.
I mean, this whole spiritual area is so massive. I
Mhm.
mean, talking about, I mean, in the book somewhere, I'm talking about Jupiter and the energies of the universe.
Oh, I'd love to hear more about
And
that.
and and so on, I mean, Jupiter is the planet of the depressives, apparently.
Mhm.
It's an energy where people used to astral travel, uh,
Okay.
to Jupiter if they were sad, and they would come back, um, very happy, because
Oh,
all that depression would have been taken off them
okay.
by Jupiter, sort of absorbed it off, and, um, and then they would come back, and so on. So the Martian energy, of course, which is, strong and powerful, and that is used. People draw on that when they need to, build their empire,
Mhm.
rebuild their house from being blown down. You need that energy to move you forward. And Venus, of course, and all the home body love that Venus
Right.
brings. So again, all the energies of the universe as another aspect in the book. So yeah, my book is. Atlantis and Gaia. I'm supposed to say that rather than my
I
book.
forgot
One
that you
one one
said
of
it was
one
Gaia
of
when
the
I'm
things
going
I've
to.
got on this list is do not say the book.
No, but I
Give
mean,
it
I
the
just realized,
title.
so Atlantis and
Atlantis and
Gaia.
Gaia.
And
But
I
yes,
go,
so
I just said this to you earlier in the show. Well, I call Earth Gaia. Duh.
yeah, so there's all sorts of things in this book, but I mean, from planetary influences to George Harrison's past lives to herbal supplements and all sorts of things. But it all comes together. It's
Mhm.
lovely how it all joins up, because I mean, there's different areas of understanding, and one of them is, say, nature and the healing elements of nature, and people sort of put that in one box. Indeed, I
Right.
used to put that in one box. And then there's astrology, that's another box, and,
Mhm.
and so on. Past lives and reincarnation, that's another box. But actually, they all, of course, join up. They're all part of one the great mystery of the
Mhm.
world.
Mhm. We have a
Um,
question for you. So, and I think it's a good question. Michelle, well, all questions are good, I guess, right? The only ones you don't ask are. And so Michelle asked, she said, is Saturn, is it connected to Satan from what you've
well, yeah, I mean, as I'm aware of it, there is no Satan as
Mhm.
such. Satan is negativity, negative energy.
Mhm.
I mean, I associate Satan with the devil, and the
Mhm.
devil is lack of light. That's what that means. It's lack of light. It's ignorance,
Yeah.
and any um, any evil on earth is actually self-created. Is created by mankind. It's not created
Mhm.
by the gods or any energies in the universe whatsoever. We
Mhm.
do that. And that's why we need to meditate in order to get rid of all those vicious feelings, some of which come from past lives and some of which come from this lifetime, and sort ourselves out, and then peace will come back to the earth plane. But no, Saturn is about restriction, restricted energy. It also manifests as caution in somebody. So if somebody's born on Saturn's day, which is a Saturday, they
Mhm.
will have an element of caution
Okay.
within their personality. So again, it's interesting looking at the personalities of the planets, and depending on which day of the week you're born, you
Right.
bring through a certain element of that. Yeah.
That's so I like I say, I have so many questions. Like I want to ask you about this next one, but the first one, and I don't think it's going to be a simple answer because you've got something from Julius Caesar and Fred Astaire to Angelina and Brad. There is no end to exciting tales. But I'm going to ask you this other one first, because this is a strongly debated topic. And it says, everyone alive has reincarnated multiple times over. Karma is where I was going with this, is a merry-go-round. Please explain, because people, I do not think, understand really what karma is. And I would love to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm,
karma is unfinished business from
mhm,
a past life.
mhm,
So if, for example, let's take an example of a married couple and they have a bust up in one lifetime,
mhm.
then their karma in a future lifetime will to be
Right.
come back and sort that mess out,
Mhm.
and then either live in harmony or indeed break up, but at least sort out whatever it was that was causing trouble and resolve it and then move on. So it's always about moving on from a difficult situation.
Rather than punishment, because that's what you
No,
hear
it's not a
about
punishment.
but that's
No,
what people think karma
no.
is, right?
Yeah, it's come to get
Yes.
you. It's about resolving an issue that you created yourself in a past life,
Mhm.
and you now need to sort it out. So, and that will we have 3 chances to do that, and that is all.
Okay.
So, for a specific topic, shall we say. So if you have a difficult relationship, you
Mhm.
come back once. If you can't do it, you come back twice, and then the third time you come back and it's wiped. So and then you move on. So these things, they don't last forever. You work
Okay.
through them, or it's simply okay. Now we're going to try something else, something else. But it's always about what you have done in your previous lifetime, and then you work through it in the next lifetime to resolve it.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
what people have a hard time wrapping their minds around is people, human beings that have done great evil on this planet.
yeah,
And when you tell them there's no hell, and
mhm,
then to, I don't mean you, but I mean the global, like I've said it, I'm sure
yeah,
you said it, then people, well, they say, well, and I had this question in the beginning too, was, well, then why bother being a good human being? If there's no reason to be a good person, why be a good person? Of course, there's a bigger answer. I'd love to
yeah,
know your thoughts on
yeah.
it. But people can't wrap their minds around that. Well, what happens? There's got to
Mm.
be justice. There's got to be retribution. There's got to be something for what they did to other innocent human beings. So, what's
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
Mhm.
they do. I mean, there is purgatory though, as I
Mhm.
understand it, there is a
I
purgatory.
have heard of that too. Yes.
And people get stuck in there until they finally their thoughts alter and they can finally move forward. So they get stuck,
I
they
have
can
heard
get
that.
stuck there for as long as it takes for
Mhm.
them to finally
There is no time
understand
though. We're
something.
eternal. We're eternal.
No,
Right? So,
no. But they do come back, and they do have to resolve the damage that they've done in some respect, and
mhm,
that can take, if it's a mass murderer like Hitler, that
mhm.
can take eons. Um,
Right.
but the interesting thing about Hitler is he he has a huge energy around him, so
Mhm,
he is a devolved soul.
mhm,
Um, and if you devolve, you still have a lot of power. That power remains at soul, even though it may not be apparent down here. And yeah, I mean, you have to come back and do it again and again and again
mhm,
to um, resolve your karma.
mhm,
You'd have to have I mean, you'd have to have an individual sort of example, really. But also the other thing about past lives, which
mhm,
is interesting, is if you're sort of wondering, well, who was I in a past life, or what
mhm.
happened in a past life? What you have to do is look at your fears and phobias,
Yeah.
and the big ones, and they will be your past lives.
Mhm,
So there's no chance here, because and again, I used to think, oh, if you've got a phobia, you're just being silly. No, you're not being silly.
mhm,
That actually impacted on you in such a terrifying way in a past life that you brought through a phobia into the next life. But you've forgotten, of course, because it's behind the veil, what actually occurred. But when you find out what happened, it makes perfect sense of the phobias. So if you want to try and understand, you know, why I just find it incapable to learn to swim, or if I do swim, I'm terrified of drowning, then maybe you might have drowned in a past life, or whatever. So, there's that kind of element. So that gives you a clue about
I have
what's
visions
going
of
on.
that. I have
Sorry?
visions of that. I have visions
Oh, right.
of
Okay.
drowning, and my dad almost drowned me when I was 5. I thought it was quite humorous that he'd always learned that to make a child learn how to swim was to bring them out over their head and just put them in the water and they'll learn. And I went right down to the bottom twice. And I was always terrified of water. And then it was like
Yeah.
it brought up visions. Like if I had to choose a way I didn't want to die, drowning would
Mm,
be the worst on my list. So,
yeah.
but what I did with that at a young age was I decided that I no longer wanted to be afraid of water. So I learned, I became a lifeguard. I learned how to swim. I
Right.
became,
Yeah.
because no, it doesn't mean it's never going to stop, that I'm not going to maybe lose
Yeah.
my life, or, there's something attached to that from a previous life. But I think it empowers us to take some control and power over things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. To
Mhm.
master it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There you go,
Yeah.
master it. Hi,
Mm.
Angel Light. Somebody just wrote that. No, Erica had a question, and I thought it was an interesting question. I think I heard the answer, but she asked it. You were mentioning that when somebody comes back to correct try something over and over again.
Oh, they have 3 attempts.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Why
Um,
3?
well, I don't know. I just
I'll
that's just
tell
what
you
I
what I
hear.
heard. Oh,
But I've heard it so many times now, I have to say, well, it must be true, it's like when you just keep repeatedly being told 3, and I have been for several years,
mhm.
I just accept it, but I don't know why
I
exactly, but
kept
it does.
hearing when you said that the first time you experience it. The second time, you're going to come back and you're going to try it, right?
Yeah.
Then you're going to go back home. You've agreed to come back. We're going to try it again till you get to your third try. And then by then, I just kept hearing you've given it a real good, I don't even know why I don't say this phrase, but a good college try. Basically, you've tried pretty well from all avenues.
Yeah.
You're really not progressing. Let's not
Yeah.
beat a dead horse here.
Yeah,
So
that's
three,
right.
yeah, three's a
That's
powerful
right.
number too. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, the other thing with, past lives is location as well, and also energy. I mean,
Mhm.
like, when you go to when you've got an absolute love of somewhere that you want to go on holiday, then you have to bear in mind that that will almost certainly be somewhere you've lived
Or you know
before,
your way around and
and
you've
you
never
have a
been there.
huge attraction. And I've actually met people like that. I mean, I
Yeah, I
remember
have too.
talking to somebody
Mhm.
who, he said, the first time I went to Rome, I knew exactly
Mhm.
how to get around. I
Yeah,
knew all the streets, but I'd never been there before in my life.
yeah.
You hear the most incredible stories. Well, obviously he lived there, hadn't he? But, we live in a Western society, where people don't think things like that most of the time. But yeah, and, I remember when I went to Versailles when I was about 13,
Mhm.
um, I had the most electric experience. It was just incredible. I just
Mhm.
couldn't get enough of Versailles. I just had to see everything,
Yeah.
and I've never forgotten that. And
Mhm.
now, of course, now that I've studied my past lives and I understand what's going on, I realize that um, I had a very happy and exciting life, um, as part of the court at Versailles. Um,
Mhm.
it was a good moment,
Mhm.
rather than a bad moment, which would be First World War, which I was sort of
Right.
born in the terror of the First World War. And again, you just as a child, you think, "Oh, I'm just being silly." Now I realise I was a soldier in the First World War, and it was horrific.
There we go.
So that's sort of, that's the one extreme to the other extreme. So what you really, really love, and what you're repelled by, are ways of working out your own past lives to a certain
Mhm.
extent. Mm.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. Oh my gosh, you have so many topics on here. I'm just like, I know why now, because Gavin sent me a list and I don't usually use it, but tonight I heard Brittany, you're going to want to look at this. Like you're talking about fairies and healing. And it's like, oh my God, this is way up my alley. So I am going to ask you because I think a lot of people, I always say I come from a big pharma background. But I am a true believer that the human body is perfect in the way it is made. But
Mm.
whatever we encounter could be physically, spiritually, emotionally, could be hanging on to past life energy, to whatever
Mm.
it is. If we don't heal it and move it along, it stagnates in the human body, I believe, and that's where dis-ease starts, and that's where we start to have the issues. But I
Mm.
also believe excuse me. Again, I just had this conversation with someone. I said, no, I don't think I'm a doctor. I don't think I'm God or anything like that. But I really believe that nature has provided for us all that we need to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
And that with enough research or connecting with those that are well versed in it, there's
Mm.
always an option. Like I say, it's not that I'm avoiding going to a hospital or going for, like, if somebody was in
Mm.
acute pain in my house or their life was in danger, pet, family, human being, whatever, of course I'm going to bring them in. But if
Mm.
not, I always look for something natural. So, what is healing and what is Reiki to you?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
how would you?
w- d- um, hang on. But oh, well, the difference between natural medicines, you mean, and Reiki,
Well,
or
even the, you know what you, it was written here is how do I heal you and what is Reiki? But
oh, right, okay.
mhm,
Well, certainly with what I understand, from up there about healing plants is that they heal at soul. They do a lot more than we think that they do.
mhm,
Plants have an emotional, mental and emotional picture as
yep,
well as the physical. So if you go back through herbalism, you'll find certain herbs are famous for. Well, there's one called it's called symphytum, but I think its herbal name is something like knitbone.
okay.
So it's obviously been used to heal, yeah, help bones to knit together
I
when they're
figured as soon
broken.
as I heard knit bone.
Knit bone,
I know.
and it's called symphytum,
Okay.
really. But that's been around for thousands of years, you know.
Mhm,
But as I say, as how I understand it now, um, herbs will heal at a much deeper level. They'll actually heal at the soul level as well,
mhm.
which may be a contributing factor to
Is it
why maybe you
real?
broke your leg, or sadly, or whatever it was that
Mhm,
happened. Whereas Reiki is energy, of course, isn't it? So Reiki is heal, and Reiki does heal
mhm,
physicals as well. Um, yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful combination. I mean, you use both of those together. I mean, you're absolutely right. Obviously, if you've got a broken leg, I'd be first person to be in the hospital as fast as I could. I mean, they're absolute angels, you know.
mhm,
But you can also use other things as well to speed up the healing.
mhm,
And certainly, symphytum, for example, for um, helping a bone to knit homeopathically,
mhm.
um, speeds up the healing by about
Yeah.
40%. Well, it's worth
Mhm,
having, have it, So, I mean, I would be certainly going for, whatever the doctor prescribes, but
mhm,
also I'd be jolly well taking my homeopathy alongside it, and
mhm.
doing the Reiki,
No, and I
throw the
agree.
whole lot in, why not? I mean, it's not going to do any harm. It always helps.
Well, I agree because, like, when you were talking about plants, and again, hearing spirit, well, you were saying that they heal at a deeper level
Mm,
because they're alive. They were alive. They've got that energy. Plants have souls, whether people believe it
yeah,
or not, they do. Whereas versus taking something synthetic
yeah,
that
yeah,
hasn't got any natural
yeah,
energy or any, I can totally agree with
yeah.
you 100%. Because I think depending on where you live, say, and we will see this geographically, where people may have a certain type of illness that sort of seems to be centralized in that locale where they live. There are herbs, and if you work with the right person, and we're not giving medical advice here, folks, we're just sharing personal experiences and knowledge. I have to say that. But you will find people that will have knowledge of what is available to help you
Mm,
heal if that's something you're looking for that is not acute or life
mm,
threatening. And it certainly can't hurt. Like you said, first place you'd
mm,
go with a broken bone to the hospital, but how it's not going to hurt you with this natural, healing modality, if you will,
mm,
so a plant
mm.
that you can take that could facilitate the healing by 50% more quicker than without. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's incredible how fast homeopathy can heal things up.
Mhm.
And also, I mean, there's Chinese herbs and all sorts of things. I
Oh,
remember
yeah.
taking Chinese herbs years ago. Well, I was actually, um, yeah, it was a long time ago now, but I was completely exhausted.
Mhm.
And I thought, "Oh, I'll try anything once," because I mean, this is me, I just love trying things out,
Mhm.
exploring nature and so on. And so I went along to this Chinese herbalist. He gave me these things to boil up, on the
Mhm.
stove. And within a week, my God, I was so well and
Yeah.
so strong. I mean,
Mhm.
it was just 1 week. It was incredible. So I'm just open to all sorts of ideas.
Mhm.
It just seems a shame that, you get that your doctor is so limited in what they'll prescribe. If it's not in his book
I agree.
from Big Pharma, then he hasn't got it.
Mhm.
And there's so much more else out there.
You just
Yeah.
said the magic word. You said if you're open.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time. I told you this was gonna happen. Like it goes by so quick, and I'd love to have you back on. I've really enjoyed the conversation. People are putting this already in the comments how much they're enjoying this
Oh, thank you.
conversation, and I'd love to have you back on. But
Thank you
I
very
think
much.
what we could leave people with, and I'd love to hear if there's something you want to leave them with. But I think you said something very magical and so true, which is be open to it. But is
Yeah.
there something else you want to add? And then I'm going to
Yes.
let people know where to find you and we can.
Yes. Don't judge. That's the thing. People are great judges. Yes. My book, Atlantis and Gaia, is available on Amazon,
Mhm.
Kindle, Barnes and Noble, or visit O-Books. There we are, and it's out
Oh,
now. It
all
came out
right.
on the 1st of June.
So it's
S-
perfect timing.
So yeah, yeah, fabulous. There we are,
Excuse me.
and yeah. And I have a website which is called Rutland Healing. But if you Googled my name, it would that would come up as well. So yeah, yeah.
You have a website though, don't you? Because I think I
I,
published
I
it.
do, yes. I have a website. It's called rutlandhealing.co.uk.
Mhm.
And it's all about natural healing and psychic things and all sorts of blogs on,
I
you
I
know.
love it. Now somebody asked, can I get notifications? I'm not sure what you mean, but if you'd like, I didn't get a chance to say hi from my YouTube channel, but it's under the Angel Rock with Lorilei Potvin, or you can sign up for notifications on UFO Paranormal Radio, either on YouTube because we're streaming there tonight, or Facebook. So you're on one of the YouTube channels. But people have put this was amazing. Thank you, Diana. Am so into all of this and just loving what we talked about. So I'm so glad you came
Thank
on. I was
you. Well,
looking
that's
forward to
very
tonight.
kind of you to invite me. Thank you very much.
Well, like I said, and you guys, you got to give her huge props because it's like almost 1 a.m. over there, and she stayed up to spend time with us. So,
Yeah.
well, there'll be
Uh,
people that'll hear it on the replay, like I said, because our network plays to almost every country around the world. But I appreciate when someone comes live, and I realize some people can't, but it's so nice versus pre-recording because I can't interact with the audience when it's pre-recorded, nor can my guests. So this is so nice because people had some questions for you and comments.
Thank you.
So
Thanks.
thank you. Sorry, she said we'll try to find you at other places. Angel Light says, and Sandra. So, like I said, if they just look up your name, I think they can find you, right, Diana? Because I think I
Yes.
did.
If you put Diana Mary Rose,
Yeah,
psychic writer, I mean, I think there's only me pretty well, so it
you
should
did
be all
show
right.
up. You did show up. Just
Yeah.
even, and I was surprised. You're just the three names together, but you did show up because I forget what I think I was looking to see if you had a website before I realized that there was a link on John Hunt Publishing for you to your website.
Mhm.
So you'll be able to find her. You're on Facebook, I know too. I found you have a business page on there too.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So they said, love this
Oh,
show, even though I caught the last part of it. Well, guess what? I'm going to throw this in here. So even if you catch the last part of this, or Facebook has been notorious over the last couple of weeks of making it look like we're live when we're not. But if you ever want to rewatch or listen, we are carried on any platform that you can think of that carries talk radio or podcasts. So that's SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Podbean, iTunes. That's just a tiny fraction. The SoundCloud. The other thing is the video replays are always on YouTube. So they're on UFO Paranormal Radio Network channel. They're on my YouTube channel. I basically just use YouTube as a backup. They're on Facebook. You guys can find us anywhere. So like I reminded you at the beginning, if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your families. We have something for everybody on this network. We have so many new hosts from around the world, different platforms, different topics. So, and then if we aren't live, the archive server is going. So there are shows that go back as almost, because the network's been around for almost 25 years. So there's some incredible shows on here. So you'll always hear something when you tune in. Please check out our website. It's finally been revamped. I'm here. It's almost been 4 years. I've been asking, all of us have. So if you go to www.uprntalkradio.com, you'll be able to check out our new site. I believe you can listen live from there. So I'm going to let people know about me very quickly. So you guys know, those of you that are my regular followers that are here. Hi, Giovanna Maria. She says, yes, I am Giovanna Maria. So nice to have you. Because Erica said that live, yeah, got her too. It's been getting a few people. Erica, you're not, so it'll look like we're live, Diana, on Facebook. Like it'll be red flashing, we're live, and we're
okay.
not.
Oh,
So those of you that know, I will be back on Thursday, this Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I will be back with my amazing co-host, David Hansel, and it's with The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. So I don't know what Dave and I are talking about, but we'll find something unusual, strange. We talked about some of the things we talked about tonight, even you and I, Diana. So be sure to tune in for that. Next week, I don't know if I have a guest book for next week or not yet. I don't think I do, but I've been trying to do more shows just even on my own too, because then we really get to talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. So that may happen. I send you all so much love and light. Forgot to mention, you want to get a hold of me. Maybe you got a guest show, a guest or a show idea. You want to book a reading. I do healing sessions. I do mentoring. You can get a hold of me on facebook.com/the Angel Rock. And I have two groups on Facebook I run. One is called Paranormal University for more of the spookier UFO, alien type stuff. And then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for more of the spirituality, spiritual type things. So I hope you'll join them. Anyways, Diana, thank you so much for being here. I loved having you on. My audience did too. So thank you.
thank you.
It was great having you. So you guys, oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just saying thank you very much indeed.
Oh, you're
It's been
so welcome.
lovely.
I have a little bit of a
It's been
delay sometimes, and I'll
a
think
wonderful
someone's going to
talk.
talk, or there's a pause, and then I end up talking. So I apologize if that happened. So you guys take care. We'll see you Thursday night. And again, thank you always for your support and being here and being part of the show. You know, I love having you here, and so do the guests. See you Thursday.